So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Uber, losing their court case. We've spoken about this before, but there is more to talk about, especially since Uber's actions are still looking a bit dubious, to say the least. So Uber claims they're willing to change, but that does not seem to be the case. They were forced to change really by the Supreme Court. So Uber has insisted its fares will not rise after saying all 70,000 of its UK drivers will be guaranteed a minimum wage, holiday pay and pensions. The ride-hailing giant says drivers would earn at least the national minimum wage, or £8.72 an hour, in a move that could shake up the wider gig economy. It comes a month after it lost its legal battle in the UK over driver status. So massive credit again goes to the the people who brought the who took Uber to court over this. Even though it took 5 years and a lot of money and a lot of pain, I'm glad that they won in the end, because the gig economy is super dodgy and all it does is really benefit the employers over the employees. It's just not a good system. Analysts also warned the company had increased prices in California after a similar ruling, or was likely to do the same in the UK. I mean, if you're upset, do you want the person who's driving you around to be given a poor wage which they can barely live on? Because if that's the case, you're a bit of a scumbag. Writing in the Evening Standard, Uber's chief executive Dara Khosrowshahi, no, I can't pronounce that, said this is a significant improvement in the standard of work for UK drivers, but I know many observers won't pat us on the back for taking this step, which comes after a 5-year legal battle. They have a point though. I hope the path that we choose shows our willingness to change. The thing is, mate, you don't deserve any credit for this. If you gave up after the first court case and said, all right, look, we're in the wrong, you would deserve a bit of credit, but not like this. No. What you've done is, if you're a kid and you've done something bad to someone else and your mum forces you to apologise, that's the situation you're in now. You don't deserve any credit for your apology or, the changes you've had to make because of this court ruling. Like, there is no credit you deserve from this, honestly. No. Union leaders and employment experts said Uber's move would have far-reaching consequences for the gig economy. Bates Wells and lawyer Rachel Matheson, who represents Uber drivers fighting for workers' rights, said it called it a very significant milestone, which it is, because now they're recognised more as employees rather than self-employed people who don't get a lot of rights within this country. However, one union complained Uber would still be able to pay drivers for the time they spent, would still not pay drivers for the time they spent waiting in between jobs, despite the fact that the court said they are classed as employees as soon as they log in and until they log out. So it's very strange. The changes also do not apply to Uber Eats, who remain self-employed, which, I hope they don't have to go to court again, Uber Eats staff, to bring the same thing in. I really hope they don't have to. I hope this sets a precedent that, gig economy workers can push to be classed as employees and not self-employed. So in February, Uber lost the third and final stage of a 5-year legal battle with drivers who claimed it had wrongly classified their employment status. It argued it was a third-party booking agent and its drivers were self-employed. The courts didn't see it like that, and it ruled the drivers are workers, a category, sorry, not employees, workers, that's an important distinction, a category that means they are entitled to minimum wage, holiday and pension rights. Uber was not legally obliged to grant these benefits across its business, but was facing further action from drivers, as well as calls for compensation for past misentitlements. It's not clear if Uber are going to do this, because it will cost them a lot of money to compensate workers for, at least the last 5 years of this court case dragging on. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen. If Uber did want to show some goodwill, that's something they would be looking at. The company is also being challenged by its drivers in many other countries, and over whether they should be classed as workers or self-employed. So hopefully all of the Uber workers and gig economy workers can get the status of worker or employee, regardless of whichever country they're in, and they the exploitation from Uber stops. Uber, which is worth more than 110 billion but has never made a profit, said the changes to UK drivers' pay would come in from Wednesday but form an earnings floor, not an earnings ceiling. So they'll still be able to make a lot of money and, stuff like that. There might be like an added incentive of, minimum, the national living wage and however many jobs you do. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that. The company said the new rates would come on top of free insurance to cover sickness, injury, maternity, paternity payments, which have been in place since 2018. That's something Uber said, here's some crumbs, leave us alone. You don't want to become workers, etc. So there's that. Uber will at least pay the national living wage for over 25s, which shouldn't be the case. It should be for anyone who works for them, regardless of age. All drivers will be paid holiday time based on 12% of their earnings paid out on a fortnightly basis. So now they can get holiday pay, which means that, at least they can get some time off. Drivers will automatically be enrolled in a pension plan with contributions from Uber alongside driver contributions, setting up drivers over the long term, which I hope some of the drivers actually do take. It will continue free insurance in case of sickness or injury, as well as parental payments, which have been in place since 2018. All drivers will retain the freedom to choose if, when, and where they drive. So there's some good stuff in there, but Uber did try and make some minor reforms to keep the workers at bay, which didn't work. Uber pointed out in his statement announcing the changes that a worker is a classification that is unique under UK employment law. Workers are not full-blown employees, something that I misstated in the beginning, but are entitled to the minimum wage, holiday pay and a pension. The company said the recent UK Supreme Court ruling had provided a clearer path forward as to a model that gives drivers the rights of worker status while continuing to let them work flexibly. So, Uber being forced into this decision, it's not a great look for them. The trade unions are still not super happy. So the boss of the TUC union body, Francis O'Grady, said that Uber was trying to cherry pick from Supreme Court's ruling, which said Uber should consider its drivers as workers from the time they log into the app until they log off, which is something we've already mentioned. Instead, it will only commit to these entitlements from the time a trip is accepted to the drop-off. So if it's the case that Uber are wrong, and which I think they are, but I'm not a lawyer, Uber could go back and be taken back to tribunal over this because they could be breaching the Supreme Court's ruling. The people who brought this Uber to court, or to tribunal, were James Farrar and Yassine Aslam. The two former drivers who had sued Uber over worker status said the company was still shortchanging drivers to the tune of 40 to 50%. Also, it is not acceptable for Uber to be unilaterally decide the driver's expense base in calculating minimum wage. This must be done as a collective agreement, they said. Obviously, expenses are different for different drivers, depending on the area you live in, the car you drive, stuff like that. So, for Uber to be doing this is very bad. So we'll see what happens with that. Others pointed out that Uber had said nothing about compensating drivers for past entitlements, something that we've mentioned as well. So we'll see what happens with that. What could the impact be on the wider gig economy? So despite the reservations, employment experts and unions heralded Uber's announcement as a big step forward for workers' rights that would be felt across the gig economy. So this is good news for workers in the UK in general. Nigel McKay of law firm Lee Daly, which represents the Uber drivers in the recent court battle, told the BBC, "We see so many other operators using this employment model, which is questionable, and they'll now see this decision and think, hang on, if Uber had to finally give in and accept that the drivers are workers, then how long are we going to be able to sustain an argument that our workers shouldn't be entitled to those rights?" The thing is, a lot of these, unless the law changes, a lot of these companies will get away with it unless their workers take them to tribunal. So, that's what's going to happen here. Mary Walker, partner and employment lawyer at law firm Gordon's, said the additional costs facing the gig economy means some business will simply be unable to continue trading. Other firms will be forced to be able to restructure, but perhaps with fewer workers. That's something I feared with this Uber ruling. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the wider economy. Union leaders also warned other economy firms they would have to change. This is the end of the road for bogus self-employment, said Mick Ricks, national officer of the GMB union, which has been fighting for employment rights through the courts. So this is good news for workers in general in the UK. But if you're working in one of these firms that which classes you as a someone who's self-employed, it might be worth talking to lawyers who specialise with employment law to see if your fellow colleagues have a case to say we are not self-employed, we are workers, and therefore we will be eligible for these rights. So it might be worth talking to a lawyer who does specialise in employment law. But this is a big win. It's a big win for the workers of Uber, and hopefully for workers of Uber Eats and other gig economy workers. So like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.